Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ivy Sapp, and today I am doing my presentation over Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, he is a native of Colombia, and so that's where he draws a lot of his inspiration from. Um, so he was he's born in Colombia, and he was raised by his grandparents mainly, and then he had a lot of like aunts and uncles and a big family. So in one of the sources that I have, it says he grew up in a large house with an extended family of aunts and great aunts who, like his grandmother, were constant storytellers of local myths, superstition, and legend. So that is where a lot of inspiration that Marquez gets for his magical realism stories, such as the one that we read today, titled Death Constant Beyond Love. And so, like I said, a lot of the imaginary that he gets is from his grandmother, and because he was raised by her, so he hears like the myths and all that jazz. And then, as we know, the political side that is present in the story that we read, Death Constant Beyond Love, that comes from his grandfather, because we see he said, "That's just the way my grandmother talked." And then he said, Garcia Marquez found in Kafka the mobile balance of non-realistic events and realistic detail that combined with his grandmother's co-exotic stories and his grandfather's political concerns would become the genre known as magic realism. And that was found on page 986 of our textbook. Oh. And then, so we see that the political side that is in Death Constant Beyond Love comes from his grandfather, because we know that one of the main characters in the story is Sanchez, who is a politician. And as we read in the story, that he is just like a greedy politician who just is selfish, and he makes all these promises that we see, like on page 989. It quotes, he promised he promised rainmaking machines, portable breeders for table animals, the oils of happiness, which would make vegetables grow in the salt header, and clumps of pansies in the window boxes. So we see that all these promises that were made up by Sanchez, this politician who's in a noble position, or like an honorable position, he does not even uphold them. He's just talking like words without actions. And then it goes to say, when he saw that his fictional world was all set up, he pointed to it. That's the way it will be for us, ladies and gentlemen, he shouted. Look, that's the way it will be for us. So he is saying that he's going to do all these great things for like the community and these people who are looking up to him, but in a result, he's not doing anything. He's just falling. Like, he's just a faulty person. And so, that's the political side of like the realistic events that was being talked about on page 986, when he said grandfather's political concerns would become the genre known as magic realism. And so we see that that the Senator Sanchez is just faulty, and I believe that the magic that we have in this story is that we see, like, just like the situation is that the Nelson Nelson Farina is wanting to have a fake ID because he's a criminal, and he wants to do all these things, but the only way he can do that is if he is constantly bribing the senator, and the senator constantly tells him no. But then the senator sees Farina's daughter, Laura, and he says the daughter had inherited her color and her figure along with her father's yellow and astonished eyes, and he had good reason to imagine that he was rearing the most beautiful woman in the world. So also a point I forgot to make is that the magic could also be when we know that Nelson Farina had buried his wife in a vegetable patch. I don't know, that's just kind of crazy. It almost makes me think of like Faulkner's, I think it's Faulkner. I can't remember who writes A Rose for Emily, but we know that Emily literally stays with a dead corpse, so that's what makes me think of it, just like something crazy and exotic, because it says, let's see, by whom the woman died of natural causes, and a short while later, and she didn't suffer the fate of others whose pieces had fertilized her own cauliflower patch. So he killed the first wife, and the second wife don't even know about the fate of the first wife being butchered and buried into the vegetable patch that she's tending to. So I think that's the magic that could be in there, and the situation of Nelson noticing like the connection between Sanchez's, Sanchez wanting to get with Farina's daughter, Laura, in order so that Nelson can get the fake ID, which is awful. But honestly, here's where the realism comes in. Like something like that could actually happen in real life, which I mean, we see stuff like that happen about like sex trafficking and everything. And then another point is that, like the sad thing is that it could happen, but like we don't want it to. And so then politicians, the realist part also with the politicians is that even in today's time and in the past, like Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton, is that politicians find themselves all the time in scandals. So I think that's the realist part too that Marquez is pulling into, using Sanchez as a politician and throughout the story. And so the magical realism is using the fake aspects of the story, like the wife being put into the vegetable patch and seeing the most beautiful girl in the world, going along with the scandals and the lies and the promise withholding that we see in Sanchez. Yeah, Sanchez. And we see that all the choices that Sanchez had made led to him. He was ultimately going to die anyway, but I think that it shows that love almost is like it's magical, because we know that Sanchez had a wife and kids, but instead he chose to have an affair and just get with this girl, which I don't know. It was it was definitely a surprise, and I think that the magical realism in this story is very present. And then in another story that I just want to touch on real quick is that Garcia wrote a story that I'm sure most literary people are familiar with. And it's called A Very Old Man with Enormous Wings. And so just in that story, Garcia uses obviously an old man. And so it's just magical realism using a man who has wings. So obviously that would never happen. And in my research, I found one article, and I like this quote. It says, let's see if I can figure it out. Or let me see if I can find it. It says, the trait of his writing seems to have a touch of magic about it, and yet it always rings so true. And I think that really sums up Garcia's writing, because throughout the story we see, yes, it's the fake, fictitious story, and we see that who would actually sell their daughter and what kind of politician would actually do this, but then the realism comes in when we see, like, okay, this could actually happen in the real world today. So I hope that was very informative, and I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, have a good afternoon.